And we're trying to make the character to move or to jump or even having double jump. Yes, we have to animate it, but later we can animate that so we know which animation should go to which state. And the way that we're going to make the character to move is by using the new input system. Also, it's worth mentioning that I teach it in a way that you can export for both mobile and PC. So yes, we create the UI for the mobile too. But if you want to use your game for the PC, that's right, you can just deactivate the UI and go with your PC. Unity has two types of old version and a new version for handling the movement, but or even for everything, for movement, for firing, for attacking, for different things that you have to, for example, you click on something and something would happen. These are the interactions that you have. So while using the new input system, because, for example, you know that Unity has the capability to publish a game for different platforms like mobile, PC, Xbox. So when you use new input system, it doesn't matter for, yes, you, for example, publish your game for the mobile, but it also can work for the PC. Export that for the PC. Yes, for the exporting part is different, but the game that you're playing can automatically detect that which platform you're using. So you use just the same code, but then in Unity decide, okay, that if this is the phone, if this is Xbox, if this is a PC, so you don't be worried that, okay, I want to publish this for PC, so I have to write a separate code. No, you just write once, and then it will be applied for different platforms. So in order to use the new input system, we have to install the package. Okay, let me deactivate them because now we're going to just work with the player. So now go to Window, Package Manager. Make sure that you use, you check the first one and then say input. Yes, that's it, input system. And wait to install that. So you see that is, a new input system. So the name is really new input system. Okay, but I don't know why the name is like this, but yes, you know that it is. So mine is going to be installed. So this window would appear for you. So it said that you want to restart the project, the editor. You say yes. And wait that the project is reinstalled and the package do its work. So yeah, if you didn't save that, just save. And now that is reopened. And you can close this. And now we want to use that. So let me go to we don't have a script. Okay, let's make a script folder. Scripts. I make a folder for the player. And then a folder for movements. Believe me, later the project would be very, very messy if you don't do that. So here, right click, create. I don't know if you see that. That is input actions. Now, change the name something like player input manager. And then open that. And now you have to make an action map, for example, for the player. Okay, so what are the actions, for example, for moving, for shooting fire, for using melee attack? So these are the actions. So click on that. And then, for example, change it to move. Now for the type, as the moving, for example, if it's go from 0 to -1, it means that you're moving to left. And if it changes from, for example, your player stands here and it goes to right, then it means that the value changes between 0 and 1. So you have the value between -1 and 1. So you have the values because you want to read the value. Okay, what is? And natural type should be vector 2. Okay. So the type is value because you want to read the value between those two numbers, 1 and -1. Because, for example, if you want to jump, you just use a button. That, for example, you press on something and it jumps. It doesn't read any value. You just hit something. But here you need the value for the amount, and then you use the vector 2. And then you can now decide, for example, for the keyword, what it should be. Now, as you've selected this, selecting the plus to bind. Do not select the first one. Go to the second one for the up, down, left, right. Okay. And then you can call it W. Actually, we just want the left and right, but yeah, you can make bind all of them to this. So if you, for example, have a top-down view game, so you can use this way. So for the up, I just go there, and then I click on that, and then I press W on the keyboard, and then select that. For the down, I go and press S and find this. For the left, it would be A on the keyboard. For the right, we go to, for example, D on the keyboard. And also you can bind, this is what's for the keyword. For the mobile, we use the UI. So don't worry, we use that. You can also use touch, but for the tone platformer, we usually use the buttons. The left and right arrows are usually on the bottom, so we use that there. You can add, for example, for the gamepad, use the left stick. And you can add as much as you want, but let's save it. Now we have for the move, and later we will. And remember the name. The name is very important, okay? So now I'm going to make a script for player movement. Maybe you have seen in some of the tutorials that, for example, to use the new input system, there are some weird codes, for example, unable, undisable, the CDX, and so on. So, but there is a simpler approach that you don't use those things and you simply and directly connect this to your player and you only write the code related to moving, okay? So go to your playlist. That was the holder. We don't have anything to that. We just go to there. And let's quickly add, for example, the box collider 2D. So that is the boundary that no enemy can pass through. And also they can hit you in that way. And also nothing can pass through that. Yes, and you can also, and this is a boundary that's, it doesn't allow you to fall down, because we're going to use rigid body 2D because we want to have realistic movements and physics related things, and I want to, yes, dynamic. And also the gravity is scaled to 1 because when we jump, we want to fall down. Okay. And also, but if you have a top-down view game, you have to put it to 0. Go to add components and search for player input and drag and drop your you know your input action, or you can just click on that and yes, there's only one is this and then this, because the name is player, your input action. So it's like that because there's no other options. And yes, you're finished with that. Now we go to the code. You have a rigid body. Do you remember that how we got the components? Yes, you said private rigid body to the RB. So rigid body of who? Rigid body of the player that is here. So we directly say get components. RB is equal to get components, rigid body, 2D. Okay. Now we want that give a speed. Private int speed. I could say public so that it would show in the inspector. But I want that to keep the code private to this class. And also serialized field, as you remember in the elementary course, I said that, okay, this is the way that you can make this public and be visible in the inspector. Okay, so you have these values. The speed is, for example, but how much speed it goes to right and left. Mm. Oh, I have to give the code to the player. Don't forget that. I give the value of 5. So we have this aside. Now we're going to use the action map. It is very important that, for example, if the name is move, then you have to say on, then move. Or you have here, if you have, for example, movement, here you say on movement. Let me show you that. Private void on move. Okay? What is that? On move. So you add on, and then plus the action name that you had. Okay? So it wanted me a value. Okay, do you see that? Because it's a name of value and it is vector 2. So let me go there and say private vector 2, for example, move direction. Remember, that's for moving left and right and staying still. We have, 3 status. If you go to right, it was 1. If you go to left, it was -1. And if the plate doesn't move, it means 0. So the move direction actually is related to the, for the X, it means 1 and -1. And also for the vertical, which we don't use here, it means up is 1 and -1 for the down. Okay? So on move, here we say input value, input. So you want to get the inputs from, the thing that you have attached here and read that and use it in the code. Okay? So the move direction, I just want the value. So please transfer your value to this. And that is input the get vector 2. Yes, so it gets the value that is 1 or -1 or 0 and then give it to that. And as you remember, for the rigid body, we better use the fixed update. So let me go there and say fixed update. Now we have to check if the player is moving or not. If move direction is not equal to 0, it means, okay, the player is moving. And something is happened, moving direction dot x in the x-axis. This is not 0, and it is either 1 or -1. Okay, they want to use that value. Then we say rb dot velocity is equal to new vector 2. So for the x, it has to have, we use a sign that is either 1 or minus 1 in speed that we had here. And for the y, we just want to keep, the y value. We don't want to change that. So we say rb, that's velocity, that's y. But what if it's not moving? Then we have to stop that. If it's 0, then the velocity have to be 0. We say new vector 2. Yeah, the 0. And hold whatever in the vertical position that you are. So that's it. Yes, we use other things here, so we need it, but this for the fixed update, so let it be compiled. Yes, it is. Yes. Okay. Now let's check it out. Oh, excuse me. That is 0. Yes, for the first time I didn't assign that, so no, that is 0. Okay. Give it 5 and let's give it a try. Like, that's because I didn't lock down. For the rigid body, go to constraints and freeze the Z so it wouldn't fall down. And 5, I think, is very high. Okay, I press right and I press left. Okay, so it is working. And you can play with those numbers. I think yes, 5 was better. And yes, so that's it. It was very simple, right? But there's some, it is very weird that, for example, this is moving in that direction. The sprite, is looking in that direction. But when I move left, it just goes back. I want that it rotates to that direction as well. So what we should do, and also don't worry about the animation. In the next session, we also give it an animation. Don't worry. But just now, I just want to fix, the facing, the direction that the player is looking. Okay. So how we do that? Let me tell you the concept. There are different ways, but look at the scale. This is 1. If I make it -1, then it looks that direction. So if I somehow use a code to change this, then we are the winner. So for moving to right, it has to be 1, and for moving to left, it has to be -1. Then, so let me write the first part, then I tell you the other one. So as you want to check this per frame, we use the update. Because fixed update, we just use the rigid body thing. So we say if, what is this? If move direction dot x is more than 0, it means that we are moving to right, do something, and then else if move direction is to the left, it means that it would be -1. We want to get this value. How? We say vector 3 local scale is equal to transform that local. Do you see that? That is transform, and in this kind of property. And we say yes, something like this. Then we want that it be positive. Just say local scale. Which one? The X one, because there are three parameters. We just want to work with the X. X is, we use something like this, math F apps. It means that it returned me a positive number. Okay, so we did that. Now we have to update it and return it to that. Okay, and we say transform that local scale is local scale, whether it is x, y, no. Yes, we want the x, but fine, we can just say the whole thing. It's just change the x of that thing. So first we get this value, then make it positive, and then we again give it to that for the player. This is inside our code, but this is for the player. And we also do the same thing for moving left, except that it is minus. So, but if it is currently at right, then every time it is executed, and it is unnecessary. You just want to change it once when it changes direction. If it is moving right, then when it is moving left, we want to that this be executed only once, not at every frame. So we say here, if transform that local scale that x is, means that the player is already facing left and we want to suddenly go to right, then we have to change the direction. Only in that condition, or if here the transform that's local scale that x, it means that it is already positive, but we want to go to left, so it has to be left, to be minus, only executed once per changing the direction. And our code is even more optimized. So now we want to add the jumping. Because, for example, this here we cannot go through, so we need to implement the jump button. So now let's go to our player input and add a new action called jump. And yes, this is just a button, this is not a value, because you just press once, it doesn't have any value. It's just using that if this is pressed or not. And you can bind this, for example, to space bar, or you just type a space and then it will go for you. And also you can add another binding. For example, for the gamepad you usually use bottom south for most of the controller, so I just button so yes, and you can use, for example, a touch for Android, but as we're going to use UI elements, we can just directly give this function to the unclick button. So yes, save this, and then we go to our code. So here we have private void. First, we have a function called jump. We can use rb.addForce, which is very realistic, and it is as it is less controllable. Usually in the 2D platformer, they don't use that. Instead, they use rb.velocity, which is more controllable. And new vector 2. And we say, for example, for whatever your x is, and add some jump force. Serialized field private int jump force, for example, 10. Yes, 10 is, I don't know, just play with that number and see whatever's better. But this is only a function out of the update or fixed update, so it wouldn't execute it on its own. So we're going to use the action here. It is jump, and now we say on jump. Private void on jump. And we say, because it is a button, we say if it is pressed. So it's going to have some input value, input, and we say if input that is pressed, if the button is pressed, then execute the jump button. All right, so let's see what would happen right now. What is this? So I say press jump. Oh, 10 is too much. 5, 7. Okay, yes. And you see that if I press jump, it just goes bye-bye. And we have to check that if it is grounded, for example, jumps, and if it is grounded, then it's allowed to jump again. Not in the mid-air, it just jump. Okay? So we have to use for example, there are many ways. For example, if this has collided with this, then it is true. Then if, okay, it has collided, then it can jump. But a very simple other way is using raycast, as I've told you in the previous course. So it's kind of, it brings a ray, kind of invisible ray, from the player. For example, we say to the down. And if it hits something, then it means, okay, it's that hits to something. So there is something here. So that is, maybe it is a ground, then it is grounded. But if it's in the air, the ray doesn't hit to the ground because it is very short. For example, it is just 1F. So it is false. Then it didn't hit to anything. So there's something like that. So let's go here. Private bool, because if I want to say, okay, it is grounded or not. So we say is grounded. And we say, we directly return because we want a value to be returned. So we directly say return physics 2D, that's raycast. Then we have different parameters. You want the origin and direction, and also the size. Origin is transform the position of the player, to the direction of the down, to the ground. And also you can give a distance. For example, you can say, okay, 1 if it's completely attached, to the ground, but we just give it some more space for some. That's better to use to give it a value, and it depends on the pivot point. If it is here, but if it is the pivot point is here, then you have to give a lot more value. But here it's very close to the 0. And also you can assign that switch layer. For example, like, imagine that you just give it a name, for example, like ground. Then you say dot ground, and you just say private layer mask for example, ground, and you have to make it serializable so you can select that from the inspector. For example, like this, and just add ground. I think that it is better, and this code, as I've tested, only work if I do something like that. So go to the platform, add layer, for example, ground, and assign this to that. And in the player, it means this. If you want more layer, you can add that. So you see, I cannot spam the jump, and it only is able to jump if I, reach the ground first and then jump. But the jump is really bad, it's very floaty. It's like being on the Mars. So you usually change the gravity scale, for example, to 5. Oh, that's too much. Then I have to increase the jump force, for example, to 10. And this to 3. I have to play with these two numbers, okay? 12. If you want to add double jump, I'll show you that. First, you need a counter. Private int jump count. Oh, not like this. The first one usually is lowercase and this. Okay. At first, this is 0. Then we say, okay, as it jumps, so increase the jump count plus plus. It means every time add 1 to this jump count, and then yes, then if it is grounded, it can jump, and also else if you can't delete that, but you can also keep that if you want. But if you delete this, nothing wrong would happen. Okay, and now input that is pressed, and we don't say it's grounded because we want that it be in the middle of the air, but the jump is equal to 1. It means that it has jumped once, so it is allowed that it jumps again. And then it go plus plus, and it never goes to 0 then we have to somehow make it 0. So here we can say bool is grounded, something like is equal to that. If is grounded, then make the jump count equal to 0. So if it hits the ground, then the jump count is 0. It means that it every time returns to normal, and it can again make the first jump and make it equal to 1. And when it is 1, it can jump again. But if it is 2, it cannot, and it has to be is grounded, and it reaches to 0. Okay, as it is shows error, just to return is grounded. So whether it is true or false. So yes, that's it. So here you can have another function, for example, just tweak the jump force and change that if you want that your second jump has lower height. So, but now we imagine, okay, that both of them has the same force because it is very strong. Yeah. So you see we have double jump. But I cannot jump for 3 times. 1, 2. So no 3. So that's, you can You have this. So yes, I know that this is really, moving very stupidly. It has says animation. So next time we add the animations of moving and jumping. Now let me say very quickly that's how you can add the UI for the mobile for moving and jumping. So let's design it first. I want that my bottom be, for example, two sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 by 2. So 2 multiplied by 128, that is this. And now export as PNG. Then go to your projects in the art. You can make a UI. So everything that is related to UI goes in that folder and drag and drop your picture here. Drag and drop. Change the PPU to 128. Do this. Okay, so first we have to go to UI and make a panel. Okay, now select the screen space, drag and drop your main camera here, and change this to scale with the screen size. For example, I want HD, and call it to this number. Now you have this. And the canvas, it should go to a layer above all of them. So I add a layer and call UI, and then I go to canvas and what is that? Sorting layer UI. So it would be all in the front, and then okay, this is set it up and go to panel. Now I want that first I have a panel for movement here, and I say panel movements. Then I can have a panel for jump. Different things will come later here, so I will keep the size. And I make sure that the panel movements, I click on the Alt. I press here, click on the Alt, and press here. No, this one. I gave the, yes, so I then bring it here. And a panel jump. It has go to this side. Do you see this anchor? It means that in any devices it's best to go to this position. And you have this. Now for the movement, you want that the movement be the bottom. So go to UI, legacy bottom. You can have bottom text mesh pro, but you have to install the package. So I think that it is fine to have this. The bottom, for example, btn. Btn right. Then I go here. I give my arrow and set native size and do something like um, and go to the text and remove that. And you have the right, and inside this panel, I want that be in the right side. And duplicate that. Panel left. And I have to change the scale to minus, so it would turn that direction. And also here, let me control copy and paste, bring it here, and call it BTN jump. I can rotate that. Yes, it has to be here, minus 90. For jumping up, you have this. And the panels, I move the opacity to this. Let me first say, okay, yes, anchor to this place is good, because later I'm going to add the sword melee attack, the potion, the fire summoning, and different buttons. So I put it here, and then I go there and remove the ugly white thing. And then for the BTN also, I decrease the opacity so it wouldn't obscure my scene. You can even change the color here if you didn't do in the Photoshop. Um, yeah, I think this is good. And increase opacity a little bit more. So these are your buttons. Here, you don't really need that. That was redundant. Even if you don't do that, the game works properly. So now, if you want to use a new input system for the UI, for example, you go to Jump, and then on Add Component, search for On-Screen Button. Then you just try to connect the path. For example, here it is a space. You say that, okay? And now let's try it. So you see, it is working. And in this way, you just use the new input system. And as your space or jump was connected to the jump, then it worked. Now let's go to moving forward and backward. I mean the left direction. So for the right, add on a screen button, and for the control path, okay, you said that I want to go to right, then press, open that and press D on the keyboard. And then for this, go and add this and press A. That's it, so simple.